Welcome to the NFL Brekkie Show for Week 6, brought to you by the Next Gen Ford Everest. Conquer every day in the Next Gen Ford Everest. Laurie, Horesh, we are conquering every day as we are now 1/3 of the way through the NFL season. It is flying by. We have blinked. Week 6 culminates today on ESPN when the Chargers host the Broncos. My good friend Aaron Atide holding it down on my behalf on the sidelines. And it's an 18-week season. At that point, we are 1/3 of the way through. So this is the People's Show. And I know you have reached out to the people to talk about what are some awards we can give and mile markers we can put in and stakes we can put down to acknowledge the fact that if this were a different sporting code, like not the gridiron, but the NHL, we would be at the first intermission. We'd be 1/3 of the way through the year.
Look, there's a couple of things that are passe in the world. Quarter mark awards, quarter pole, whatever you want to call them, quarter way through the season, that's done. Doesn't work. No. We're third way. It's the dirty 30s. Embrace. It's the dirty 30s. As two people who know what it's like to be in your dirty 30s, this speaks well to us. And our awards are themed. We're not going with you straight. Look, we'll tell you who we think is going to be the MVP. We can talk about Coach of the Year if you really want. Throw it in the questions.
Rookie of the Year.
The comments, the chat there. Send in your questions, your takes. But we're touching into our nature as 30-something-year-old fellas, 30-something-year-old people, and some of the references, some of the themes that we are stylizing our awards around speak to that. And we're going to jump right into that. But look, this is the People's Show, so fire in your answers. I've thrown it out to Twitter, on social media. I've asked for people's nominations for some of these awards. We'll get into it right off the bat. And what a beautiful day to welcome Ford back to the show. Loving sponsors that have been on board with us for a couple of seasons now. Great to have Ford. The Next Gen Everest back on board. So, okay, let's go right off the top here. Phil, this wasn't a song that spoke to me. This wasn't a band that spoke to me per se, but back around this time, I'm in high school, you're in high school, when Evanescence burst onto the scene, that song was everywhere. Everyone can still hear the haunting lyrics, Bring Me Back to Life. So that is going to be our first award of the day, the Evanescence Award, Bring Me Back to Life. We have got a gauge on where some of these teams are and where some teams have fallen short so far through the first 6 weeks of the season. So this award, and we want your nominations, which former player, let's say recently retired player that was on your team at some point in their career, would you love to bring back to that franchise to help out what ails them? This was inspired by Andrew Whitworth and the Rams, and Joe Noteboom going down, who is the heir at left tackle there, going down with a serious injury. Looks like he's done for the season. Only hammers home those cries that I'm sure Rams fans are making to bring back Andrew Whitworth. That's who inspired this. So that's where I want you to take your mind to. We've got some great submissions so far. A name that came to mind for me was Anthony Costanzo heading back to the Indianapolis Colts. I know Josh sent that one in. These were filtering through some folks in the some Cardinals fans who would like it if Bruce Arians made his way back onto the sideline and grabbed the headset with what's going on in Arizona. So Phil, the haunting melody of Evanescence is piercing through your brain. Who do you want to bring back to their NFL life and help out a franchise that's struggling at a spot?
Well, Laz, you and I are thinking along the same vein, as are many of the people. We look at some of the skill positions and how those positions age out and deteriorate, and speed is the first thing to go. You and I have talked about maybe somebody that might fit that bill. Maybe we'll bring them up a little later. But I, like you, look at the offensive line because we see these guys, maybe if they're losing a step, it's not going to cost them as much because the physical strength is still there and the football IQ remains, if not getting altogether sharper. But I'm going with somebody who's in his physical prime, protecting somebody who is very much not. And that is Alexander Ali Marpet, who was signed through the 2023 season. So he was signed for this year and next season. But in February, right after the season wrapped, at age 28, to quote Conor McGregor, he said, "Thanks for the cheese. Catch yous later." And I say that tongue-in-cheek because everybody, Tom Brady included, wished him well. He's beloved. But, man, the Bucs could use some help in a number of places, particularly in the interior offensive line. We saw a situation yesterday in Pittsburgh, driving down 3rd and goal. Cam Hayward just blows up whatever the Bucs had going. Bucs, time and again, settling for short field goals, leaving points on the field in a 2-point loss that, frankly, they should have had. Tampa, well, Tom Brady, the other TB, had beaten rookie quarterbacks 12 times over. This wasn't just a rookie quarterback starter. they had to go to his understudy. Now, again, as much of a seamless transition as you could have had, the guy who was QB1 in week 1 with Mitchell Trubisky. And listen, Tom Brady and the offensive line wasn't why the Bucs allowed a 10-play drive to run 4.5 minutes and 3 third-down conversions over 10 yards, both of which to Chase Claypool, who played a terrific game, 7 catches on 7 targets. But shoring up that interior offensive line in an NFC East that seems so winnable. But you look at teams like the Saints, who aren't going to go quietly, the Falcons, who are punching above their weight class and have maybe the easiest remaining strength of schedule in the NFL, shoring up that offensive line for Tom Brady, who has had his worst QBR since that metric became a thing in 2006, some of his worst yards per attempt, that extra half second to throw, he would covet. Not just an offensive lineman, but as somebody who's in his late 20s. And as you explain yours, I realize I have left my Dirty 30 trophy just over here to my left. So I'm going to leave the stage and allow you to have yours, and then we can give the unofficial award. So I will return.
All right, so I'll just vamp here with the we've got the audience comments came in thick and fast for this. So some of the nominations that we got for the Evanescence Award, I mentioned Andrew Whitworth's name was out there. Anthony Costanzo was certainly brought up. Bruce Arians was brought up. As a scroll through, look, Panthers fans, Brad came in, a Brad loyal listener. He came in, he wanted Steve Smith back. He wanted Primetime Cam back. He wanted Luke Kuechly back. He was clutching for anybody. He was going for everybody to come back. Look, as I cast my eyes across it, I look towards, I've watched, and it may be because I find Kyler Murray entirely fascinating to watch as a player and entertaining, or I may have, some sort of fantasy interest in Kyler Murray this season in some of my lineups. But I've watched a lot of Cardinals football, and it is quite honestly nauseating, frustrating to the point of being nauseating with how inefficient they are, the plan, the execution, how haphazard it is, how disjointed it seems. I would love to bring back, and they could use some help on the offensive line, more injuries there. They get DeAndre Hopkins back this coming week. Hollywood Brown goes down with an injury, not as severe as initially thought. They thought could be out for the season with a foot injury. It doesn't sound like it's going to be all the way gone for his campaign. But we need a veteran presence in there, a voice that will be revered in the locker room and will have the strength to hopefully walk up to Cliff Kingsbury and present his own football intelligence and his own football game plan that might be able to right the ship here. I'm going to Larry Fitzgerald. I'm bringing him back, even if it's not prime Larry, if it's 80% of prime Larry, 85% of prime Larry Fitzgerald back in the lineup. He helps out your passing game. He presents a different option to DeAndre Hopkins.
Let him be a player coach.
He's a player coach, and in the run game as well. Like
2
Larry
downs,
Fitzgerald
and he'll
towards
come
the end of his
on
career.
a headset for 3rd down.
Why not? Draw it up. Kneel down in the dirt. Draw it up.
He'll be a coach one-third of the downs appropriately.
But on rundowns, he was a very, very willing, vicious at times blocker late in his career. He can help out in so many ways. So for me, the Evanescence nomination, the Evanescence, my award goes to Larry Fitzgerald. But I think it speaks to what we've watched so far throughout this 2022 NFL season. That is, this hasn't been the record-setting points and passing attacks that we have come accustomed to, like kind of heading in that upward trajectory over the past 5-10 years. This has been a bit more of a grind for a lot of teams. We have seen a return to the running game. We haven't seen this hyper-efficiency really consistently across the league. So offensive line and receiver, of course, for us, are spots where we go, look, let me bring you back to NFL life.
Laz, and this is going to be our unofficial trophy. I mean, the Ballon d'Or was handed out just hours ago. Karim Benzema and the Ballon d'Or Feminin, Alexis Putellas, congratulations. If we're doing a different football code, we'll give an empty bottle of champagne. I think that is appropriate for the Dirty 30. Having in our 30s, we have finished off one of these. Fun fact, this is the bottle of champagne that was completed by Steph and Alicia Curry at the last finals. I won't tell you how I obtained it. That's a different story for a different day. We're going to wait till the statute of limitations passes. But this is our Dirty 30 trophy. It just feels appropriate. But Laz, where are we going to next?
Look, as we take a look down, surprise, surprise, at some of the references that are coming up here. We had Evanescence, who I said didn't speak to me overly as a teenager, but you're a fool if that song wasn't playing around you 24/7. This, however, is a relic, not even a relic, just an artifact of pop culture that still resonates with me today.
67 Mustang a relic? No, it's a classic.
The Chubbs Peterson honor. Chubbs Peterson, of course, the legendary coach who met who met controversial meetings with a crocodile, an alligator, depends where you're from, in Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore, one of the last movies I watched before becoming a married man. Thought I'd cap off my life as a single fella, enjoying a movie that perhaps wasn't going to get a huge run in a married household. I'm sitting down on movie night with my wife, but hey, there's Happy Gilmore fans all over the world. So the Chubbs Peterson honor, this is our mea culpa time, Phil. This is where we really sit down and say, look, I was wrong. You were right. I'm dumb. You're smart. I'm not going to go into the other ones because I don't need to boost your ego anymore with any comments about good looking and not good looking, but you get the vibe. This is our mea culpa time, Phil. A claim, a take, a stake that we made that went so poorly, and through 6 weeks, we know we were bona fide wrong. Where are you going with your mea culpa? And if you've got a mea culpa out there, a bad take that's aged poorly, send them in now. We'll get them up on screen.
Laz, I'm ready to say it. Chubbs Peterson honor going to Geno Smith. I was critical of his performance, what would transpire in Seattle. I thought this team was destined for 3 to 4 wins, and Geno was just a placeholder, despite some passing efficiency he showed in the past. And even in the win over the Broncos, they wrote me off. I didn't write back. I kind of rolled my eyes at that because he was pretty pedestrian in that second half. But in the 5 games since, again, QBR isn't the perfect metric. But you look at some of the people in and around him, they're all having pretty solid seasons. He's 4th in the NFL in QBR, in total QBR amongst qualified QBs. You want to take that out, do something more like yards per attempt, how many times he drops back, and every time he drops back and releases the ball, how many yards he picks up. Well, among the quarterbacks who have started all 6 games, it's Allen first, Hurts second, Geno Smith third. Not saying he's the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL, but he is punching above his weight class. He's the reason this team just keeps sniffing around that 500 mark. And the NFC wildcard picture is going to be a bear. I still think it's going to be both NFC East teams that claim both of those spots. I think ultimately the Cowboys, Eagles runner-up will be the top wildcard team, and the Giants, I think, will get that last spot. I'm a believer in the muscle that is Brian Daboll and the New York Giants. But the NFC West, I'm not ready to pencil in San Francisco, who's depleted. Arizona has loads of problems. I think Cliff Kingsbury is getting on the hottest of hot seats. And the Rams have some serious offensive line concerns. They're down to 5th string guard at one of their spots, which you already talked about with Andrew Whitworth inspiring, his absence at tackle, inspiring the Evanescence Award. So I think Geno Smith and this team, we're going to get to week 14, 15. They could be sitting there at that 9-6 mark, 9-7 perhaps, and have a chance to play their way into an NFC West title, which was just unfathomable heading into week 1. So I'm not saying I'm backing them, but the fact that they're even realistically in the conversation in a tight, again, fairly pedestrian division, but I was wrong in that Geno Smith is the perfect guy to handle this transition to whoever their QB of the future is.
Spoiler alert, I don't think that's the last time that Geno Smith's name is going to get mentioned throughout this Thirdy Awards special bit. I think the entertainment factor that he's brought into this as well, the fact that he is some of the aggression he's brought to the party, standing there in the pocket and firing downfield has stunned many. And we'll touch on that a little more later. Look, we've got Brad sending in his mea culpa. I said DJ Moore would be great value for fantasy football. Look, you weren't alone there, Brad. There were a lot of people that thought, hey, DJ Moore might be getting passes from the best quarterback he's had in his career in Baker Mayfield. I'm not sure that the production has matched that claim. For me, mine lies in the state of Ohio, in the city of Cincinnati. Cincinnati's in Ohio, right, Phil?
Yes, the airport's in Kentucky, which makes no sense. But yes, the city is
the EQBDB, the Early Quarterback Development Bureau, heralded the work by the Bengals in rebuilding their offensive line to start the season.
We got to get our clipboards and go back to Cincinnati, Kentucky.
Some of the names on the interior of the offensive line, they might have been getting back to professional level play rather than any stars that were being added. But I thought with acquiring Lyle Collins for pretty cheap amount after the Dallas Cowboys said "C'est la vie, goodbye," it seemed like, hey, with the ascension of Jonah Williams, we're going to have bookend tackles for Joe Burrow. That has not played out. So my mea culpa is double. One, the claim that the Bengals offensive line was really on the improve. It has not played out that way. It's a frustrating offense, even putting up 30 points against the Saints. So much of that was the Bayou connection between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase lighting it up back in a familiar environment. But they haven't been to establish balance. The running game has been a punish to watch through 6 weeks. And the other side of the mea culpa is I hammered the Dallas Cowboys for their decision, particularly after week 1 when Terrence Steele looked awful. I hammered the Cowboys for moving on from La'el Collins, especially with so many leaks coming out of the building that he was on the way out and seemingly depressing any potential value to get back, or how high a draft pick you might be able to attract on a trade market, considering everybody seemed to know that Collins was on the way out. Now, whilst the leaks might still be a bit, not the most efficient way to do business and might not always help your market, the Cowboys were spot on. There were some murmurs going around about his fitness, his hip in particular, La'el Collins, whether he could bend and play with the necessary flexibility to handle life on the NFL offensive line in the trenches there anymore. And so far through 6 weeks, the Cowboys look spot on in their evaluation. Terrence Steele has aged well into the season, whereas La'el Collins looks like he's just aged. He looks far closer to being out of the league than he does being, a Pro Bowl, all-pro level right tackle, which his talent suggested in the first few years of his career.
Well, Laz, and I think that's thematic for both teams who were in last year's Super Bowl. If you look at the Bengals' 3 wins, Joe Burrow's been sacked a total of 6 times. In their 3 losses, he's been sacked a total of 15 times. It's binary. Keep him upright, you're going to win games. Same thing goes for Matthew Stafford, except for the Rams. And you mentioned them at the start for a candidate for the Evanescence Award, Andrew Whitworth. His is even more disparate. 3 wins for the Rams. Stafford's been sacked a total of 3 times. 3 losses. He's been sacked a total of 19 times. It is night and day with those teams. You keep your quarterback upright, you win. That was the area of focus for the offseason for the Bengals. They poured draft capital. They poured free agent capital there. They still have the same resistance as a set of saloon doors when they play quality pass rushers. I mean, Dallas got to Burrow, 6 times, 5 times? So, and they got to Stafford 7. So it's an issue for both of those teams. But you and I both thought, tick the box. We took our clipboards and went home. We got to turn around and fly back to Kentucky to get to Cincinnati and check in on them again.
All right, let's touch quickly on some of the comments we've got coming in. Mitch, this is a little more evanescence-y. I spent all my fantasy football budget on CeeDee Lamb. Will he come back? Lol. Look, CeeDee Lamb has shown a little more consistency with his hands, and I think with Dak Prescott slated to come back against the Detroit Lions in Week 7 against that defense, I think not only will you feel like CeeDee Lamb never left, I think this could be, start your Cowboys against the Detroit Lions this week, particularly if number 4 is back. Jumping over to social where we had some of these sent in ahead of time, Tom said that his Chubbs Peterson has to be the New York Giants, just everything about the Giants in general this season. Not alone there at all. Scrolling through here, we've also got Brad with a controversial one. He's saying anyone who said Jalen Hurts wasn't a good quarterback. Look, yes, Jalen Hurts is showing himself to be a good quarterback so far in the way that he plays the game. But I'm not sold that he has ascended into top 10 status, particularly when you look at his work from the pocket. And that's not where quarterback play is limited to. But I didn't think coming out of that game yesterday, credit to the Eagles, gone to 6-0, dominated up front for most of that game, weathered a storm and went back to the running game in the second half to power home and get that 2-score lead against Cooper Rush late in the game. And the defense playing fantastic.
And fail at a 2-point conversion that was totally unnecessary. So my under hit, under 43.5. So
it's a lot of people.
Credit across the board to the Eagles.
So, But Hurts is just going to be a really interesting one to watch the rest of the way. Just really to see how teams respond. They're a short yardage nightmare with their duality with what they can do there. There's seemingly a team will come up with an answer, but right now people are struggling for an answer when Hurts gets to play a run pass option, in short yardage.
And you have someone pass option also works.
It does work. And he gets all that time to watch someone watch the line. And then you have AJ Brown screaming across the formation how you're supposed to, as a defense, rally and cover all those things. You get left in an awful spot. Teams will have a response there, and it's just going to be interesting to see that counterpunch. A few more. Okay. Chubbs Peterson, I was wrong. You were right. Tim Gleason, former Rutgers and Wyoming punter, friend of the show. He says Christian Kirk, and there's a lot of people who can put their hand up to that. Big money, but so far some pretty nice production down there in Jacksonville. Think better, and I think that level of return on investment can continue to play out over the rest of the season. We've got Matty Lane, who's firing. He was one of the Whitworth voters for the Evanescence Award. He's got Tom Brady to Giselle. We'll leave that at that. For his Chubbs Peterson Award, we'll leave that at that. It's a family show. So, yeah, a few of those flying in. Let's move on to our next one. Our next award here as we work our way down. Look, this one came in from you. This one came from the brilliant mind of Phil Murphy. We've just said what we were wrong about. How about what we were right about? The Denny Green Award, Phil. What is the quote? Want to deliver it for us with all emphasis required?
I'll set the background, Laz. 16 years ago yesterday, the 4-0 Chicago Bears visited the 1-3 Arizona Cardinals at the Toaster in the Desert. Denny Green, the late Denny Green, head coach of the Cardinals, he and his boys rallied, underdogs, 20-point halftime lead. Then the Bears scored 3 unanswered touchdowns to close the game. Mike Brown scoop and score. Peanut Tillman 40-yard scoop and score. And they punted to Devin Hester. 83-yard punt return touchdown. Bears win 24-23. Post-game interview. Denny Green gets to the table, slaps his fist down. He says, because they were asking, Coach, how'd they come back? How'd you blow the league? He goes, they are who they thought we were. And we let them off the hook. So this is, they are who we thought they were. One of the most iconic coaching quotes here, taking it deliberately out of context, because these guys are exactly who they thought we were. We've given our mea culpas. We've been humble. We've eaten our crow. Now it's time to eat our brekkie on the Brekkie Show. Pancakes, waffles, and bask in our mimosa with this empty champagne glass. They are who we thought we were. This isn't necessarily, Laz, that I was right. This is a fan. We are the people's show. The people were right. We all were right with any one of these wide receiver ones that we thought was going to have a good season. Because you look at the receiving leaders, it's exactly who we thought it would be in week 1. It's Tyreek Hill. It's Justin Jefferson. It's Stephon Diggs. It's A.J. Brown. It's Cooper Kupp, reigning offensive player of the year. Those guys have all started the year in stride, some of them in new places, but they're all also among the league leaders in yards per reception. Tyreek Hill's in a new spot. A.J. Brown's in a new spot, but Justin Jefferson still turning defensive backs in knots. Stephon Diggs, man, you knew darn well at the end of the second quarter where Josh Allen was going on some of those high leverage downs. Right to 1-4, and he was wide open. Goes for 10 catches, 148 yards on 13 targets and a touchdown. All of those wide receiver ones, Laz, are exactly who we thought they were.
Yeah, the pantheon, the Mount Olympia of wide receivers is well and truly established in the NFL. And look, whether you're a fantasy player who's invested there, you got to be feeling pretty good about the solid greatness, which feels like a weird phrase, but that's what it is. It's week in, week out. You know what you're getting, and what you're getting is prime elite production. And it's so entertaining to watch. Really, go out, like watching Stephon Diggs play, watching Justin Jefferson play. These guys are code breakers. It baffles the mind how they can find these open windows, and that's down to, yes, awesome chemistry with their quarterbacks, but the way in which they set up defenders is a piece de resistance week in, week out. I'm going to take a big sip here, and the people can take a big sip here of I'm right latte. Soy today. The Washington Commanders are exactly who we thought they were from top to bottom. But there's been some reporting on ESPN that I encourage you to go check out from Don Bernardo Jr. And others around the state of the Washington franchise. But the words almost escape you, but this complete and utter shambles from the top has flowed down. And despite some of the exciting talent that exists on the defensive line or in the wide receiver room or in the running back room as well, there is no coherent plan and clear football philosophy coursing through that organization that is going to lead to productive and sustainable success on the field. And that's playing out. Carson Wentz, he's injured, out 4 to 6 weeks, it looks like right now. Credit to him for showing toughness and playing through that injury. I'm sure it hurt like Lord knows what. After the adrenaline started to fade off, if it didn't already hurt like crazy during the game. But Carson Wentz now out. an offensive line that cannot sustain drives despite the aforementioned talent there, the inefficient and almost wasteful use of talents like Terry McLaurin. We're seeing Brian Robinson has made his way back onto the field with one of the all-time return videos a week ago, coming out with the PA blaring "Many Men" by 50 Cent. I cannot believe they actually went with that and made the green lit that one, but it was awesome. But you feel for Washington fans, and look, no secret that my heart lies in, my football heart lies in North Texas with Dallas. But out of all the NFC East fan bases over the past couple of decades, none have been humbled quite like Washington. None have remained loyal. Like few fan bases
loyal to a fault
as Washington throughout like everything, ownership, general manager shenanigans,
price gouging of parking.
Culture,
I used to live in DC.
Very, very real criticisms and issues with the culture inside that building, treatment of employees, down to the on-field product, the field, which is collapsing, and you've got all sorts of, brown water at best flooding out of the ceiling, stands collapsing. Like they have stuck through it, and they are more realistic than most, especially they're more realistic than any other NFC East fan base. The ones in my mentions, ones in my comments, guys like Chad Ryan that do work on them from out in Australia that follow that team and cover that team. They know exactly who they are, and they are exactly who we thought they were. I'm sorry, Washington fans. You can only, for them, I'm sure, and the fan base knows it more than any. They can only pray that we've had a name change, but that a regime change and a significant one is coming in the future, because this is unending. This is the never-ending story, but it's not a fairy tale.
Well, you've had 2 name changes. They've had 3 names in 4 seasons. And Laz, you look at the schedule, they got a ticked-off Packers team coming up this week. They got to play the Eagles on Monday Night Football in Philadelphia. That's going to be a hornet's nest. I'll be there on the sideline for that. They got the Giants on either side of their bye. I mean, maybe at that point the Giants are going to cool off, but the Giants are circling that as must win if they want to hang in the wild card picture. And then week 18, they're going to have a Cowboys team with certain incentive in that game, whether it's for a division crown or for a wild card berth or for seeding as a division champion. So they're not going to win a division game this year. And as Dan Snyder digs his heels in, and you alluded to the Don Van Natta and Tisha Thompson reporting of owner Dan Snyder reportedly trying to dig up dirt and hiring private investigators to bring down other owners. I mean, it's the NFL against Washington, and that's not a place you want to be.
All right. Another place you don't want to be, Phil. Cast your eyes back. Again, let's go back to high school. We are in our Dirty 30s, and this is the Dirty 30 Awards special. Cast your eyes back to high school, and you go, for me, it was the George Street Cinemas in Sydney. And you go and see a little movie named Tokyo Drift. This was a place I wanted to be. Where I didn't want to be is where Han was, lovable Han Lu.
F3.
Fast and the Furious 3, Tokyo Drift. The lovable Han Lu, who found himself underneath,
Spoiler alert,
seemingly...
everybody. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, 20 years down the track. Spoiler alert, found himself almost 20 years down the track. Found himself under an upturned car. I believe it was his, was it his orange? The absolute special that he went tearing away Tokyo highways on. A flipped car with the oil going and flames igniting, and it was not looking good for our man Han. This was a heart-aching movie moment for me, one of the ones that sticks with me. This was like when I was a kid and I didn't watch Lion King for 10 years because I couldn't get past the move faster scene. This was my teenage version of that. So with that, we go to the Han Lu special. We thought you were gone. But then in Fast and the Furious 17, Han Lu comes back. One of the worst kept secrets that, he was going to make a return, especially after the Statham character had a face turn. It was revealed that he was the one that, rocked Han's car, and then he's all of a sudden in the family. But hold on, how can he be part of the family when family is everything to Dom? And he's seemingly killed one of Dom's members of the family. So much family, Phil. This coming from someone who has two brothers, a half brother, half sister, a brother, a sister, and a stepbrother and a stepsister. Even that's too much family for me. So it all plays out. The family math plays out, and Han comes back. So this is someone, an active player that we had written off, an active player that we had said, look, the past is now. The past is your career. The present needs to be you heading on out of the league. You do not. It doesn't seem like you have it anymore. You're done. You're cooked. And then here they come, walking back through the door, dominating again. Never left the league, but certainly left our level of appreciation. So, Phil, when you let all that wash over you, which player had you written off, did we think was gone, that has come storming back into the picture and is dominating again?
Yeah, and I want to have a caveat here. It's not somebody who I thought was fully gone, like washed. I just didn't expect him to have his best year in perhaps 5 years, especially after signing a 6-year, $120 million contract with loads of guarantees that I thought was going to weigh down this defense. It's done quite the opposite. Von Miller, after his quote, and I don't fault him for it, when he was traded at the deadline from a very soft 4-4 Denver Broncos a year ago to a 7-1 Rams team en route to a Super Bowl ring, Von said, "I went to sleep 4-4, woke up 7-1. Well, he wins as a mercenary, a pass rusher for the Rams, helps them to win a Super Bowl, teamed up with Aaron Donald. But this is still a guy who's just a couple of years from a very serious lower leg injury, missed an entire season in Denver, starting to get toward the middle part of his dirty 30s. I believe this is his age 33 season. And we're thinking, all right, situational pass rusher, potentially the Bills overpaid for him. Oh, no, Laws. We're 6 games in. He has 6 sacks. He has 2 multi-sacks games. In the game of the year on paper yesterday, he has 2 pressures that directly lead to Patrick Mahomes interceptions. These aren't just any run-of-the-mill average quarterback interceptions. Forces 2 pressures into 2 interceptions. First defensive player this season who has done that. And that included the game-clinching pick in the final minute, as we all thought the Chiefs were going to drive down the field and have a shot at the end zone. Yeah, 13 seconds a year ago. This drive lasted 13 seconds because it took all of 13 seconds for Patrick Mahomes exactly to throw an interception, thanks to Von Miller's pressure. I didn't think this was going to be the level of play that he would bring to Buffalo in his mid-30s. I thought veteran leader, again, occasional pass rusher. And he's looking to become the first player to win a Super Bowl ring with 3 teams and play in all 3 of those Super Bowls. Matt Millen has 3 rings with 3 teams, but he didn't play in one. And I believe Kenyon Barner has 3, but he was in uniform for one of them. He may have seen the field one time. So Von Miller looking to make NFL history. And man, that defense looked scary against the Kansas City Chiefs. We know what Josh Allen and the offense can do. So my Hanlu Award goes to somebody near and dear to my heart. I barrack for the Broncos. I don't fault him for wanting out of Denver. Denver obviously needed some mid-round picks to trade to Seattle to get Russell Wilson. So my Hanlu Award is going to Von Miller.
What's so weird about Von is that, not degrading the technical know-how he has, which is outstanding. He is an artisan technician as a pass rusher. But what has made him so special over his career? His ridiculous ability to bend the arc, get so low, get frighteningly low with ridiculous flexion with an X in his joints. You'd expect that would start to stiffen up, as you mentioned, in his age 33 season, and yet he is still seemingly defying gravity and physics the way he bends the corner there and gets around and sharpens to the quarterback. So look, and as you said, you touched right on the heart there. This is Han is a loved character. Von was a loved one to you. We've got some great responses to this one. We got some awesome, and if you got answers to this, fire them in. We've got a bunch already, but send them through in the comment section. Tim Gleason back with Tyler Lockett. Outstanding nomination there, and one related perhaps to mine that'll come. Because Tyler Lockett was written off, whoever's quarterback there, they'll just look for the big body target in DK Metcalf. But Lockett has had some fine moments so far this season. Matty Lane coming in with Darius Slay. Slay's been pretty good since getting to the Philadelphia Eagles, but seemingly playing the best football of his career at this point. And I'll throw one in there. One of my honorable mentions was James Bradbury lining up across from Darius Slay in the Eagles. Look, Bradbury is age 29 season. Inconsistent, to say the least, last couple of years. You don't expect an upturn there. I thought his arrival at the Eagles, maybe that might be more Nnamdi Asomugha than Darius Slay. But look at the coverage that we saw against Dallas last night and throughout this season. He certainly seems rejuvenated there. So interesting looking into the Eagles backfield. We got from the B-League says, Saquon, happy for him. Not sure I thought he was done, but had doubts about, look, that many injuries, that severe disruption to those quads or to those lower body parts. You have to question whether someone who was as explosive as Saquon was from the point he arrived in the season, whether it was still there. But
And in a contract year for him. It's a prove-it year for Saquon.
And obviously a transitional year as well. A new regime there. What's going on with quarterback? What are we going to see? What direction are they going to go? Like the new regime has no loyalty to Saquon Barkley, at least in terms of handing him deals or anything like that. They could easily have looked at turning the page. So Saquon gets a nod there. Brad comes in with Miles Sanders sticking in the backfield. Luke Sanders looked more than elusive last night against a tough Dallas defense and a tough Dallas defensive front. Scrolling through. This one, we'll go to Birdie. We will go to Tom, who hits on my nomination here. And he says the Hanlu Award should be renamed the Geno Smith Award. And that's where I fall with this one as well. Geno Smith perhaps didn't reach the heights of the Han in Tokyo Drift early in his career, but you could be completely forgiven for thinking he was out of the league and you missed his handful of starts here or there over recent seasons. Geno Smith had faded from the consciousness completely. And was he going to be a career backup? Was he going to head to, the XFL, the USFL, the CFL, the AFL? Where was Geno Smith going to go? The fact that he has emerged in the year 2022 as this pocket presence, standing tall and rifling things downfield, these big, booming 50, 60-yard bombs over the top. He's turning to his athleticism, some exciting, explosive running, some elusiveness when he tucks it and escapes would-be tacklers. Geno Smith sitting himself up near the top of the passing yardage totals and up near the top of a bunch of different passing metrics and making the Seahawks most of the time, it was a dour affair in week 6 against the Cardinals, but making that offense a must-see unit, a must-watch unit that's going to be in, week out thrillers. I mean, it helps when, again, Cardinals did what they did, but the weeks prior to that, in the fortnight prior, the Seahawks defense had allowed over 80 points. If they're going to be in those contests, you're going to have to tune in for Geno vision all the time. The Genaissance is here. The Genosis is here, Phil. So Geno Smith gets my nod for the Han Lu Award, but clearly we tapped into something with the people there because very passionate, heartfelt responses coming in from the audience.
And Laws, it is the People's Show. It's a dirty 30. We are more than 30 minutes in, so keep the comments coming and questions coming. And credit to Geno Smith. I wrote him off. I gave him my Chubbs Peterson Award. You nominated him for the Han Lu, and it sounds like one of our friends, a loyal Brekkie Show listener, has also nominated him for an award there. So he's got all of them on the mantle. And again, the Brekkie Show is brought to you by the Next Gen Ford Everest. Conquer every day in the Next Gen Ford Everest. So Laz, I'm going to say officially Geno Smith is a two-time Dirty 30 winner, a two-time Dirty 30 winner as we transition to our NFL Tag Team Champions of the World. Our weekly award. This is not a third of the season award. This is a weekly award to what we consider the current tag team champions. And Laz, I had some thought about this one where trying to figure out who this would go with. And I'll say right now, the tag team champion of the world of the week is the New York Jets no-fly zone appropriately. The two F-16s they got on the outside, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. Now, we saw them keep Aaron Rodgers very well contained. That game was won by special teams, of course. But look at Sauce Gardner's numbers. 47 times he lined up in a pass formation. He was targeted 6 times. So it's 1 out of every 8 dropbacks. Aaron bleeping Rodgers said, I'm going to test the kid. He allowed 1 reception for 8 yards. He had 3 pass breakups. He is the unquestioned A side. DJ Reed had a very strong start to the season as people have learned not to pick on Sauce. DJ Reed will give up a catch here or there. I think he in one of the earlier games, he had 3 passes targeted his way, 3 catches, all 3, but limited to 23 yards, so very low. But you look at the Baltimore game, right after his dad passed away, he allowed a passer rating of 2.9. It would have been better for the other quarterback to just throw it in the ground instead of throw it his way every time. He had an interception in that in a very heartfelt moment. Thinking about tag teams, we've had some issues in the past. A lot of these old school tag teams from our youth had, the guys pass away prematurely and that kind of thing. And it's, a sad end. But in their prime, for me, this is the British Bulldogs, because you knew who the A side was. It was Davey Boy Smith.
Correct.
Who he himself was the British Bulldog. The Dynamite Kid had his moments, but he was the B-side. So the British Bulldogs, I don't know if they have a game in London. That is the tag team champions of the world, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed.
Maybe they just kept the taste of London in Green Bay Packers' mouths after they returned from a beating by the Giants over.
Poor Packers. They looked at the schedule in the preseason. They're like Jets and Giants back to back. Easy
one
as.
in London, one at home.
Nope.
No worries. 2 wins. Yeah, this is a tag team here that is going to cause trouble, not just for the likes of Aaron Rodgers, but throughout the league. And let's talk about that A side. Let's talk about Sauce Gardner. When we talk about tag team champs, we are looking for some persona. We are looking at some work on the mic. His work on the mic, his work getting heat from the crowd. Talk about getting over. Talk about getting a response from the crowd. You walk in there with you celebrate the win with the cheese head hat in Lambeau Field to the point where Alan Lazard has to walk up to you as you're going up the tunnel and knock it off. Tell me you know you've won the day and got in someone's head and got in someone's feelings like a veteran receiver feeling he needs to walk over to you and literally knock a cheesehead hat off your noggin. So the attitude, the energy, the aura is certainly there when it comes to Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. And when you just watch Sauce Gardner play, I mean, if you were watching our draft specials earlier in the year, the name that came to mind was his length. It's like watching Kevin Durant's type of length out there at cornerback. He is swarming. He's enveloping. He is totally.
He is exactly who we thought he was.
He's exactly who we thought he was.
Not let the Packers off the hook.
And he's doing that as a rookie, Phil. Cornerback as a rookie is one of the hardest transitions you can make in the NFL. And this class, might touch on some other young cornerbacks in a minute. This class is showing ridiculous adaptation to the NFL level and have stepped in, arrived at that type of competition and excelling. A credit to that young talent coming in, but the face of that New York Jets secondary, as you mentioned, a no-fly zone for the Jets secondary, seeing Robert Saleh up and about on the sideline. The face of that is Sauce Gardner, who backs up the name, backs up the draft status with exceptional play. He is the A side, DJ Reed the B side. Love the British Bulldogs nod there. They are deserving tag team champions for this week 6 of the 2022 NFL season.
And Laz, what a draft haul from the Jets. I mean, we knew with their draft capital, Sauce Gardner early made a ton of sense. Garrett Wilson at the 10th pick made a ton of sense. Jermaine Johnson, they needed an edge rusher. Then they get Breece Hall in the second round. If you look at the markets, this is offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year favorites at this moment. That is who they have. I mean, terrific job for the Jets drafting those two. So, Laz, I think it's time for our new weekly honor that we are going to bestow. Tag team champions of the world has become a staple. We have a new staple. The Next Gen, brought to you by the Next Gen Ford Everest. Conquer every day in the Next Gen Ford Everest. It is our top performing rookie. Laurie, I'll let you announce the first one. Who is it?
Look, we're going to go straight out to the Pacific Coast here. We are going straight out to Seattle. We're going to a familiar place, the secondary, the Seattle Seahawks, for Tariq Woolen, who has taken over. We just spent some time on Sauce Gardner and talking about these young rookie cornerbacks that have entered the NFL in their first season and have hit the ground, not just running, but soaring. Tariq Woolen is a marvel. This guy coming out of UTSA, coming out of college, not the biggest school. Plenty of talk about he's raw, he's a physical marvel. Physical marvel is, talk about the next generation of a position. Go have a look at his athletic testing. Yes. His athletic map, it's like an octagon. It's just full. There's no, anybody who's played video games has seen when you select a player, it's got speed, acceleration, toughness, stamina, and it
either or usually.
Yeah, and it juts around like some sort of weird hybridized star. His is just a full octagon, pentagon, heptathlon. Doesn't matter. The man is a marvel physically, and that rawness, where we started to see throughout the draft process, he was showing increasing amounts of refinement. The amount of interceptions, it's 4 straight weeks with an interception for Tariq Woolen. He is locking things down. He is turning defense into offense and defense into points in a heartbeat. And the name that gets thrown around with him right off the bat is Richard Sherman, 5th round pick for the Seahawks, former wide receiver, long, tall. Richard Sherman, great as his career was, Hall of Fame worthy career, ran a 4.56 in the 40. Tariq Woolen ran a 4.26. Phil, that's almost the difference between me sprinting and you sprinting. This is a ridiculous gap in athleticism that this guy already brings to the table. Now he's showing increasing levels of refinement. The sky is the absolute limit. That is what we're talking about with the next gen. He is the next gen of cornerback in Seattle, in the NFL. Tariq Woolen, a breakout star, and someone who has left us just taken aback at the rapid arrival into that. Look, a Seahawks defense that is going to need pillars to build around, and he is certified one of them.
Yeah, Laz, the Seahawks hoped for this from him. There's no way they could have hoped for this by week 6 of his rookie season. You talk about that speed difference. That is foot-pounds of torque for Tariq Woolen. And his measurables weren't just outstanding. They really are unprecedented. We've never had a player that tall run that fast of a 40, especially a cover corner. A guy who stands, what, 1.95 meters, who's running a 4.26, which any given year could be the fastest time among all players at the combine. He was starting to creep into that late day 2 grade, somehow fell to the Seahawks in day 3. You mentioned the Richard Sherman comp. They were 1 pick off. It was pick 153 overall and pick 154 overall, the converted wide receiver. You mentioned the 4 interceptions. He's the first rookie in a dozen years with 4 picks. And that was the one knock on him. He was a converted wide receiver because his ball skills were a little mediocre. He's pulling in the ball, and now his passer rating allowed is actually lower than Sauce Gardner for the season. It's also lower than Jack Jones, another stellar rookie who has really hit the ground running with the Patriots, who I reckon is going to get some acknowledgement in a future Next Gen segment. But today, the Next Gen, brought to you by the Next Gen Ford Everest, goes to my boy up in the Pacific Northwest, Tariq Woolen. A very fun evaluation and somebody who is kilometers ahead of schedule in terms of his NFL development and refinement.
Just running over his numbers, it allows you to just really looking at his athletic profile, the names that come up when you run his numbers, like the names that you come up against. I'll read some of that out. The closest comparisons physically: Jalen Ramsey, J.C. Horn, Ahmad, Sauce Gardner, Eric Stokes, Prime Xavier Rhodes, Jamel Dean, and the closest
all of those
percentage.
Guys were him, but not as long. His catch radius is insane. Shorter. Him, but 2 steps slower.
Phil, those are the closest. Do you know what I mean by closest? No one is more than 70% athletically comparable to him. As good as those names are, no one's within cooey of this guy. So welcome to the party, Tariq Woolen. And I've got it. Tell me if I'm showing my age here, Phil. We need a nickname for Tariq Woolen, unless I'm lost and there's already been one. Is there already established a nickname for him? Has it emerged yet?
I'm looking now. I couldn't tell you.
All right. People out there, tell me in the comments. Shout it down if you tell me, if you think it's terrible. What do we think about the woolen blanket?
So he does have a nickname from Pete Carroll. New movie coming out in December. A Disney film. They call him Avatar.
I'm taking the woolen blanket over that any day. The woolen blanket, it envelops you. It covers you. It swarms you.
Maybe the Banshee. In Avatar, the Banshees, they flew around and...
Stop it. No. The woolen, it's the woolen blanket. I'm pushing this hard. I have yet to see anything that compares. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. Tell me I'm dated. It's an old dad reference. I'm clearly just hanging out on the couch watching, old episodes of the OC underneath a woolen blanket on my Saturday nights. Cannot confirm or deny those reports. But I think Tariq Woolen, a great way to kick off our Ford Next Gen series for the 2022 season. Phil, we are rounding the 50-minute mark. Not too bad for us. With one segment to go. That segment has been kinder to one of us more than the other of late.
Well, Hold on. Laz, this is the people's show.
Mm-hmm.
And the segment is propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And if the people would have put 1 unit, please gamble responsibly. If the people would have put 1 unit on every one of our wagers over the course of this 6 weeks, the people would be up 4.67 units. People? It's not bad, Laz. It's not bad.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. A nice tag team effort there from you and me, Phil.
Yes.
But is there an A side and is there a B side?
I'll be the Dynamite Kid. You can be Davey Boy Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I take that on. You did hit on it. Was it $5.10 for Trayvon Diggs to get an interception? $5. I keep docking you that 10. You're right. It is $5.20.
I don't know. You and taking little taxes off the top, you and taking VIGs off the top, I still think you're a little bit stuck in last week's episode there. I think the mentality is seeped in, just taking a little cut off the top.
The points. Couple points off the top.
But yes, it started on that fateful day with the Trayvon Diggs interception, turning the tables, and then last week 2 for 2 on Monday Night Football, and that has left me. What does the table say? How far clear? How many units clear am I of you right now? Head,
you are up $4, 4.92 units.
All righty. Well, let's see how you're going to draw it back here with Monday Night Football propaganda. What do you got for me, Phil? Where does the comeback start?
Wait. So I went 1 for 2 last week. You went 2 for 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, low man tees off first. Am I wrong?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no worries. Same as when we eventually play on the golf course. I'll have the honor the whole way. That's fine. No dramas whatsoever. All good. Let's start with your new look. We've got the Denver Broncos coming up against their division rivals.
I will say, very tough game to handicap. This one I had trouble with this one.
You know what? It just dawned on me just then, which is probably the worst way to do this, but it didn't even come to me to say San Diego. It's just LA now, which I'm a little bit sad about, to be honest. That's a little poignant for me. But they're up against the Chargers. The Broncos offense that, between the 20s sometimes has looked decent, but, the red zone woes, the Russell Wilson woes.
Stop.
Okay, you want me to stop? All right. But they come up against a Chargers defense a Chargers team that has suffered injuries, but also a Chargers defense when it comes to the run game. I mean, that Browns vs. Chargers game in week 5. I mean, that was like the toll gates on the highway were just broken and open going both ways. Just run through, guys. No one's stopping anyone. It's fine. We'll sort it out tomorrow. So I'm going to go with the new man on the block. I think we see Latavius Murray, new Denver Bronco, get a couple of opportune carries, perhaps down in the goal line. I think he gets in for a touchdown at any time. At any time, Phil. That's $4.20. Not playing conservative here. $4.20, 1 unit. There we go. That's my first one. Big Latavius Murray back on prime time. And if I believe his initial breakout back when he was at the Raiders, way back when, was a primetime game when he stole the show. Maybe he has a little bit of a Han Lu moment here, and he returns to the consciousness, throwing back memories and recall to that first night when Murray stepped on the scene, running like Adrian Peterson and having people wonder, is that DeMarco Murray's relative or not? So there we go. Latavius, big vanilla lat out there. Anytime touchdown, 420. What's your response?
Well, I'm on a $16 multi that includes a Gerald Everett touchdown, but that's not where I'm going here, Laz. My strategy has always been with these single unit individual wagers over the course of our NFL Brekkie Show experience. It took me to the title last season. Got some help from David Montgomery in Chicago, maybe, but this strategy is tried. It is true. I am down 1/4 of a unit on the season. Had a rough night at the Meadowlands. I went 0 for 2. Other than that, I've been 1-1 or 2-0 every week. I like where your head's at with that porous Chargers run defense. I think overall, both of these teams are going to look to run the ball. Justin Herbert will get his, certainly, but I think the Chargers, with Simmons back in the Broncos secondary, I think the Chargers look at the Denver defense. I think the Chargers are going to win this game. And I do think they're going to try and wear them down a little bit by running the ball. I think the Broncos are going to look to do the same. I think they're going to look to establish the run and limit the possessions of Justin Herbert. And I think they'll have some success doing it. I think Melvin Gordon has put his ball security woes behind him. I have him over 50.5 rushing yards at $1.91. Last week against a comparatively stronger Colts rush defense, he went 15 carries for 54 yards. I think with a new running back that comes into the mix, that could be poaching some goal line carries, certainly. I think that Melvin Gordon's touch total is closer to 20 in terms of his carries. And I think what he needs, if he even at 15 carries, he needs 3.3 per carry to get to this mark. I think he does.
After you said that Melvin Gordon's put his fumbling woes away and put the commentator curse on him in a heartbeat, the NFL Brekkie show commentator curse on him right on the spot there. I feel like I might need to change my second prop. See if I can go and market a market for Melvin Gordon to have a fumble today. But no, I'm going to stay in the backfield. Flip the teams here for a second. I'm going to go to Austin Eckler. I mean, you mentioned Simmons has come back, being activated off IR back to the back end of that defense. We know, look, Pat Surtain is all world and is going to cause some seriously tight windows, if windows at all, on his side of the field when Justin Herbert is looking up there, scanning the field, which I think leads to a fair bit of receiving production for one Austin Eckler, very talented receiver. His line is over under 4.5 receptions on the day. I'm going to take the over there. He had 4 last week, previous 3 weeks before that, 6.89. So I think that number speaks to me. I just think the way this game plays out and what Herbert's going to have in front of him, I hope that the brains trust on the sideline encourages him to take not just what's given to him, but when you can take what's given to you and it puts the ball in the hands of one of your best playmakers, that's not just a vanilla here, take what's given to you. It's the defense is playing a certain way. Let's try and move them out of it by playing with what they're giving us, but knowing that what they give us can have an actual, quite an explosive return if Eckler gets going. So let me ride there with Austin Eckler one time, once more on Monday Night Football, over 4.5 catches, and that's at $2.02.
All right, Laz, I am going with something that's a little vanilla. I don't love doing this type of market. I typically don't. I typically look for like a pass attempt. I had a terrific night fading everything Carson Wentz on the Friday morning Bears-Commanders game. Your boy cleaned up. But here I'm looking at the Broncos, who are among the worst first-half teams offensively in the NFL, averaging fewer than 9 points per first half. And the Chargers, who are among the faster starters in the NFL, they average better than 16 points per first half. I am taking the double money line, Chargers to lead at the half and Chargers to lead after 4 quarters. That pays $2 even. Certainly you get a better market if you just take the Chargers money line, but if you like the Chargers straight up, and I do, there's no reason to think the Broncos are going to come, or the Chargers are going to do so from behind. They're certainly capable of it. But what the Broncos have shown is keep the game close, keep it in range. In fact, if this hits and it's close at the half, I believe the halftime market is somewhere between 2.5 and 3 points. There might be reason to fade it because the Broncos have stolen games from the 49ers. That comes to mind. They could do something similar to a Chargers team that has been known for some head-scratching decisions and fumbling the bag, as it were. But I'm thinking the double Chargers money line, $2 on either side of it. We'll post this on social media. We'll be accountable. We'll count and make sure that Laz doesn't cheat and Laz doesn't turn heel.
Wow.
So we got to stay accountable here. We are the people's show, and we'll be posting these on social media for just everything. So keep everything above board. You were saying I was taking points, so just keep things above board.
Unfounded allegations being thrown out. You can tell it's got him. I am clearly the Source Gardener to your Alan Lazard right now. It has rattled you. It's rocked you. You're on the back foot. Before we get out of here, we just hit the 58-minute mark. Phil, we're going to get out of here before it hits 60. Quickly. One more. I love this. The B-League with a late Evanescence nod here. They're going with Victor Cruz for the Giants. I'm not sure. We have to check that 5-year statute of limitations there. But Victor Cruz back on the Giants, a Giants team that has rocketed up the Good Vibes rankings. Check them out down below, the Good Vibes power rankings. Yeah. The 5-1 Giants. Yeah, Victor Cruz, soul-stirring. Look, hope he doesn't do it against the Dallas Cowboys. That a phenomenal pick. I love that shout there. Now, Phil, rapid fire. Let's do it in 30 seconds or less because it's a Dirty 30, third way of the season, special NFL awards show. MVP and Coach of the Year. Who are you giving to right now? One-word answers, go.
Coach of the Year, Brian Daboll. MVP, leading Josh Allen.
Okay, MVP, also leading Josh Allen. I think he took that from Patrick Mahomes in their showdown. We'll see how that plays out. Coach of the Year, give me Big Artie Smith, what he's doing with so little in Atlanta.
A favorable schedule ahead. You might be able to get some meaty markets for the Falcons to either reach the playoffs or potentially even win the NFC South. I am selling hard on the Bucs.
40 seconds to get out of here, Phil. Let's land the ship. Ford's back in the mix. Take us on
Yes,
out
Ross,
of here.
Ford are back in the mix. Thank you for Ford. This is the NFL Brekkie Show presented by the Next Gen Ford Everest. Conquer any day with the Next Gen Ford Everest. He is Laurie Horesh. I am Phil Murphy. Chargers Broncos today at 11:15 Sydney Melbourne time, only on ESPN. This is the NFL Brekkie Show. Thank you for watching. We will see you next week. I'll be in New England.